Hey, Held Captive Media fans, it's your boys, Logan and Zane, and we're just up for another Just Us on the Couch, Couch Boys Night. What's up? And we're today talking about the new Disney Plus show. I guess you can't really say new anymore. No. We'll go with critically acclaimed Disney Plus show, Ms. Marvel. So Ms. Marvel is obviously about teenager Kamala Khan and her just existing in the MCU and overall the larger Avenger-esque world, obviously influenced by it, almost like kids at Comic-Con. She goes on her way to go to something called AvengerCon, and from that interaction, her whole life completely changes. This show has been widely, I guess you could say, panned by users and people specifically rating it, but praised by critics. And I think we're going to talk about kind of why today.
Yeah.
So, Zane, you saw Ms. Marvel. Now, were you looking forward to like the Ms. Marvel show before it even came out? Were you a fan of the comics? Like, what was your anticipation for the show as it was coming? Because it was announced for quite a while before it even came out.
So Ms. Marvel is one of those characters that I just absolutely adore. Her and Miles Morales are like two of my favorite, like, just like younger characters in Marvel Comics, because I feel like they do such a good job of having those coming of age stories, which for the most part used to usually fall on Peter Parker, but now that they're allowing him to kind of age up in the comics, they still go through these little weird periods of time where they want to make Peter Parker relatable again, and they think the only way to do that is to make Peter Parker poor, so they just ruin his life on occasion to try to rewrite a teenage Peter Parker story.
But I mean relatable, though.
Yeah, but they go through and like, I love the way that Marvel does their teenage superheroes, because they do a really good job of adding levity while also showing how the world around them shapes them and how they have to grow to fit into these bigger roles of responsibility. And I think that I do really enjoy Ms. Marvel comics, and so I was really hyped when they announced the show.
Yeah, and the way we're going to review it today is we're going to get into the pilot, just talk about that in full spoiler review. It'll be noted in the timestamps. And then if you're somebody who watched the whole show and you just want to hear our overall thoughts on the entire series, you can skip to that point. But right now we're reviewing the pilot, giving you an idea of whether you should continue watching or not. So in regards to the pilot and anticipation and everything, I was like fucking in on the pilot.
Yeah.
I just felt like the coming of age aspect of it, the interesting, almost Juno style editing where there's so much cross cutting between like a normal like landscape to like drawn, like interactive, whether it be text or just like visual aspects of like graffiti, or there was so much introduced into like the world, and you had to suspend disbelief a little bit because like usually MCU shows are kind of like trying to be, I guess you could say, serious in a sense. Like they're not like the way that they're not like making almost mid jokes in the middle of it. They're not like physically showing you like a cartoon of Captain Marvel flying by as you're riding your bike. Like this is really where this stood on its own, its artistic style, and I actually really enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm. And I think that they do a great job of using little things in the background that are a little bit goofier or silly or fun, but they do it in such a way that it adds to the story. It adds to the kind of who Ms. Marvel is, who Kamala Khan is.
It's like you really feel like her, I guess, presence in every scene, even in scenes she's not in, because it almost feels like her personality is like intertwined with the way they're telling the story.
At the end of the day, Kamala Khan is a nerd.
Yeah.
She's like big old
She literally
dorky,
like goes to Comic-Con essentially in the first episode.
And she like makes videos on the internet that get like 30 views, and yeah, she's a big old nerd.
Probably better than 30 views if we're being honest.
Actually, I think in the show they show that like most of her videos have like 5 to 10 views.
Yeah.
Just because they're like
crushing Kamala right now.
Take that.
Oh, no, I'm just kidding.
16-year-old.
Yeah, take that. 16-year-old who's fictional and could kill us if she was real. Yeah, I really like how believable they made the teenagers in this. I feel like that's something that Marvel's kind of not always been great about. Like, they were just trying to be too hip. I mean, they literally made a Fortnite joke in Endgame.
Yeah.
So for them to make a believable teenager and like almost a coming of age story while still keeping it within the MCU was a huge accomplishment that this show made.
So I think one of my favorite things so they've got a little like right before Miss Marvel dropped, they dropped a like getting a like behind the scenes thing real quick.
They do that
where
all the time.
They've got the lady who wrote like made Miss Marvel. Like she's the creator of Miss Marvel, and she says that the girl playing Kamala in this, she's like, it felt like I was talking to Kamala Khan. Like it was.
And the girl
so
who played
perfectly-
her, funny enough, actually cosplayed as Miss Marvel in the past before getting the
and
part.
people thought that she was cosplaying the Flash. Yeah, is like because she had the street.
Yep.
And it's like that's so it's just so genuine, so much fun, and just they're like you can feel that there's love in this show.
Yeah, I mean they write out this super realistic family, and like they have their own little intricacies and like their own culture and everything that maybe necessarily you don't understand that part of it, but you understand the part of like the family tie relationships, the difference in between how certain siblings are treated over others, the difference in judgmental parents or parents who are trying so desperately hard to be a part of your life, like the over effort to be cool or hip. All of it's laid out in the show, but in a believable way where it feels like real characters and not just like, oh, insert superheroes parents here.
And you've got great little scenes like with the brother when she's getting ready to go to do her like driving lesson or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
He says like, I can't remember the name of the prayer to say, but he says like, hey, make sure you say the thing.
Yeah.
And then, cause you're going to need it. It's like, even though like, I don't know necessarily the repercussions of that prayer, like what all that means in the society. I get being a big brother and being like, hey, you suck at driving. Like,
you're
make
gonna
sure
need
you
it.
say a prayer.
Good luck,
Ugh.
beach.
Only God
Yeah.
could help you. Like, it's something that it's just like it's just done in such a way that even when it's like, oh, these are these cultural references that we're making, they're still accessible. They're still like, it's when they're talking about like, oh, the aunties are all talking. It's still something that it's like you get. Like they either explain it to you or they do a really good job of making it relatable to anybody.
And I've talked about this in other reviews and stuff like that. There's a special thing in some of the best art and like film that you can see, and I always refer to it as neighborhoodism. And it's this existence in the film where they've crafted such a believable universe and story around what they're doing that it feels like it's a neighborhood you could walk through and physically see these people. Mm-hmm. And that is absolutely here, because it's not just the parents that are strong characters. It's everyone who's a member of the mosque. It's every one of her friends or not friends at school, you know, shitty influencer ex-friends, all the way to Bruno, who is a great character. Mm-hmm. I feel like there's so many areas where they could have slept on it, right? You know, there's so many areas where they could have phoned it in, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I just feel like they spent any ounce of time they could on character development doing exactly that. Mm-hmm. Like, if you're looking for the most action-packed Disney Plus show, this isn't it, but it never was trying to be. And for the record, if Disney would just fucking do what they should do and put out real amounts of episodes instead of 6 basically 30-minute long episodes, because it's like 40, but once you add in the incredibly long credits, which are super long because so many people work on these, if you just add like another 2 episodes or even another 1 episode like with WandaVision, just give us like a little bit more. Like, you're clearly doing this for budgetary reasons, because things that should have been elaborated on more were left behind. And I feel like that was at no fault but the budgetary side of it. Like, there was nothing that they could do to work around that. They used all of their time because they had to spend so much time building these characters, because we're being introduced to literally all of them for the first time.
Now, we do have somebody who also watched this show that
I was about to ask her opinion. Yeah. Producer Lacey.
Hey guys.
Sorry. They had to hit the cheers button.
So I like Marvel movies, yes, and stuff like that, but I have never been big into the comics. And sitting down and watching this, I was like, I immediately have to go find this comic. I have to read this. I have to know more. I Loved it so much. It was so well done in every aspect. And I finally feel like women and girls are getting representation, and like we have superheroes to look up to. Like it was just so just amazing. Chef's kiss.
Yeah, and the thing with Marvel too is like it's always been such a thing where every Marvel movie isn't just a Marvel movie, but it has its own identity. Like Captain America Winter Soldier is a like noir like thriller, right?
Yeah.
Or if you go back to like, for instance, Iron Man 3, it's basically like fucking After Hours. It's essentially a comedy, a like buddy comedy with a 10-year-old kid.
Exactly.
And that's what makes those movies great, is that they have their own individuality while still being in the larger universe. And that's something that especially the shows haven't tackled, other than WandaVision having its own vibe. But Miss Marvel really does that, where it is very much its own thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's so good for that. And I think you're right. It's like this is such a universal like coming of age story, even though it's from such a specific subculture. It is just so relatable.
Well, and also they like I love the little heartfelt scenes in this show. They do such a great job of bringing stuff like that in, because even though like you get that one line where Kamala says, she's like, well, it's not the brown girls from New Jersey that saved the world. And then Bruno drops right back in and he's like, well, it is if it's you.
Oof,
Because
so good.
It's like, it doesn't, like, you are special. No matter what, it doesn't matter where you come from, you are special. And that was just such a great little way to do it, where it was like, it's not like, oh, like, we're going to, like, try to keep. They do emphasize the point more throughout the show, but as far as like with this, they just so beautifully add that in, and I love it. Every little bit of character development in this is done just like so masterfully, and it does just build like a rich, true world.
And before the show, I think one of my favorite Marvel movies and characters and superheroes was like Captain Marvel. I was blown away by that movie. I was like, yes, like this is awesome. But I think now Miss Marvel has even topped that for me. Like she
definitely.
is now my favorite superhero. Absolutely
so
love
much.
her. I related so much to her character. It was just so great.
Yeah, it was just clearly, not only is it like a great character, but it was also just time for a character like this.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
we're going on movie 30, show, 6 or 7?
Yeah.
It's time, right? It's time for a coming of age story from a completely different perspective, because like it's supposed to be simulating almost like an American life kind of thing. The MCU, it's like if it's our world, but just way more insane, right?
Yeah.
But we weren't seeing that much representation. I mean, the fucking Avengers are 4 white dudes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's cool that things are changing in that way, because I think what it's ultimately going to do is it's just going to bring more people into the MCU. And every project as of late has done the opposite. It's like there's such a high level of knowledge you need to have to watch this. There's such a specific like grouping that this thing falls into, and if you're not into it, you're not. Whereas this is like, dude, you could show this to somebody's grandma and they'll be like, oh, this is cute.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
it totally works on that level. What was your favorite scene from the pilot?
So my favorite scene from the pilot, there's a lot that the pilot did.
I
so
love
well.
I love the planning scene where she's like planning out their escape to get to
Yeah.
Avengers Con. I think that is just like so playful and fun. And then of course you just know as a viewer, like, shit is not gonna work out that way.
It's never gonna work out that
No
way.
fucking way is it gonna work out that way.
I think that my favorite scene, it has to be.
He's so stuck right now. He doesn't even know
Yeah,
what
I
to say.
know. Producer Lacey, do you
I
got?
know it's been a while since we watched the pilot. Now that we're recording this, but I think just the thing that stood out to me like the most during the pilot that I wasn't ready for was all like the little text messages and how they like showed their relationship on screen in
Yeah.
really creative ways. I
way
thought
that they
that
used the
was so
background.
Yeah,
cool. Yeah,
I love that interactive
her
part of it.
conversations with Bruno and stuff popping up and her family. I
Yeah,
was
like in
"That's so
sidewalk
cool."
chalk, or
Yeah,
it's very reminiscent
neon
to like
signs.
yeah, like Baby Driver or Juno. Like they did that kind of stuff in those movies. I thought that was such a cool element.
It was very creative and artistic like the whole way through.
And that's how the character is, and I think it's a direct reflection of like Kamala's character, right? Like it's because she's the person who's drawing Captain Marvel all day in her notebook and making costumes and is into that stuff and YouTube videos that, of course, the landscape of the show is going to be told so creatively to reflect the character. I thought that was such a good idea.
So I think as far as my favorite scene, I love the little things that they do where it's almost in the background where you don't even catch it until, because for like, I watched episode 1 and 2 by myself, and then I was like, Lacey loves a coming of age story.
We're like, wife.
So I was like,
please.
I know you're not super huge into a lot of superhero stuff. This is a coming of age story. You're really gonna like it. Please trust me on
She
this
probably
one.
was thinking
And
like,
then
I have to listen to you fucking sweaty nerds talk about comic book shit every week anyway. You're gonna make me watch this?
And then she watched it and she really enjoyed it. But because I got to get that second watch on those first 2 episodes, I picked up on little stuff that I didn't initially catch. Like when Bruno's talking with the dad and he's like, oh yeah, I set the Zuzu up to it understands Urdu so that whenever you go to speak to it, you don't have to worry about translating to English. And he's like, the dad is just excited. He's like, it speaks Urdu? Like, that's amazing.
Yeah,
I'm
he's
just
like, fuck yeah.
Like, it's just little things that are happening like in the background, like when the brother comes in and he's like talking about like getting stuff set up for the wedding, just kind of the scene laying where it's like it's just all this world building that's happening while more central focus things are happening on screen. You get these little like things that are kind of happening almost like just quickly whispered out of the like as it's going by, and it worked really well, and it just felt made the world feel alive.
Lazy? Oh, it looked like you had something to say. I'm sorry.
No,
You're just like, no, I was just
agreeing.
just listening to my husband, Logan. Jesus fucking Christ. Anyway, one of the scenes that I really liked that we didn't so much touch on was like the bursting into power scene, and we'll find out in the spoiler section that it's a little bit of a misdirect almost. And
So, yeah, that
but it's not at the same time. You just don't understand it contextually yet. But there's such a great moment where she like finally like comes to having her power, whatever avenue it may come to, where she kind of like falls through the ground and then pops up, and there's all these people with purple eyes, and it's like these dark shadow figures, and then she pops back to the normal world. This all happens at AvengerCon, right? That scene
Was AvengerCon in the second?
That's in the pilot.
That was in the pilot. Okay, then I take it back. I think my favorite scene.
Just AvengerCon in general.
Yeah, when she was like getting ready for her cosplay and everything. I love that.
The AvengerCon scene is like my only negative, and it has nothing to do with the characters or anything. Has everything to do with the budget. It's supposed to be. I was expecting like a Comic-Con filled like event center,
but it's also
I feel like I've been to events like that.
True. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying it's what I wanted.
It felt like the Lexington Comic and Toy Convention.
And that's the only Comic Cons I've been to. So I'm like, this is it.
Yeah, but it's like it's a convention in New York for the superheroes.
New Jersey.
I thought she rode to New York. Was it in Jersey where the center was?
Or no,
I
it
thought
was
she
Jersey
caught
City.
I thought she caught a bus to New York.
Where is Jersey
for it.
City? Wait, gee.
Well, it doesn't matter. New
think
York and Jersey
she
are right
left
next to
her
each other.
Bike. That made me so sad.
Oh,
I was very
dude.
Literally
emotional.
started like
I was
as
like,
she's
her
losing her
bike.
bike, Lacey's just like she's like, no, not her bike. And
I know.
I'm like, it's gonna be okay, baby. She's fictional.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but in real
Don't
life,
worry. She can literally she has superpowers. She'll be fine. You know,
she didn't have them yet, so
that's true. She didn't
Yeah.
have him yet. And that, for you, it was just a nice girl who lost her bike. I get the tragedy.
Very upsetting.
I
Yeah.
get the tragedy in that. I understand it. Yeah, like that AvengerCon scene though, regardless of like whether you think it should have been smaller or bigger or whatever, it was fucking cool because it was also like a nice nod to the fans that they know they have, you know? Like it's like acknowledging like you are the people that kept this franchise alive to the point where eventually it became the largest franchise of all time.
Yeah.
Like you can say what you want about bringing Iron Man to the box office, but there'd be no Iron Man movie if people never bought those comics.
Exactly.
So it's cool that they gave them that kind of moment and they gave us Kamala as a character to relate to as super mega fans. I don't think I'd ever go as Miss Marvel to a convention, but like
you wouldn't go to you wouldn't go as
I gotta be honest though, you can you can spray paint me green. I'm gonna put on little purple shorts. Bet. I'm going. Fuck yeah. And I think it's cool that these characters got to do that while still the world itself not being fictional, you know? For them, like these superheroes are real, but they're still geeking out over them as though they're fictional. It's just cool. And I enjoyed that part of it. What would you say as far as like the characters you're introduced into that episode, the social media girl, the family, you know, the principal, which character do you think in that episode is like kind of underrepresented and is later kind of better represented throughout the series? Like, you don't have to give details, but for people who just watched the pilot that maybe didn't like certain characters, what's the one that has that turn for you?
So I'm gonna let Lacey start this one. Do you not want to? Okay, I'll go. So I'm gonna say the mom.
You didn't like the mom character in the first episode? That's the answer I was looking for, because at an exit poll of the pilot, people hated the mother.
Yeah.
And I find that so interesting.
I didn't so much hate the mother. She was being a mom.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
When throughout the rest of the series, you grow to just like where the mom is now probably one of my favorite characters.
Yeah, it's. I mean,
the dad was probably one of my favorite characters in the first episode. I love the dad. He's fucking big old goofball. He's like
definitely
big,
love him. Yeah, he's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the answer I was going for anyway, because I knew one of you would say that. So
I mean, I think I really liked all the characters from the beginning.
Even like the Instagram chick, like the
I wasn't mad.
Yeah, that's how I felt too.
Believable.
Yeah. So the reason why I asked that is there was that exit poll, and then there's this huge negative user review, right? Mm-hmm. We'll get into more of that in the spoilers, but just off the top, do you even see like how this ever could have been at like a 30% for users? Like, is it even like fathomable to you? Because to me, it's like, how do you watch that and just think it outright sucks? Like, you can not get it and not like it, but 30%? Are you fucking shitting me?
So
what is this, the Rob Zombie Monsters movie? No, I'm just kidding.
So
they like that movie.
One of the big things, like there is a legitimate criticism come episode 3 that I'll get into in the spoilers, because we're just talking about the pilot right now. In episode 3, there is a legitimate criticism that people of a certain faith have with it that they do end up fixing, but I'll go ahead and I'll talk about that in the spoilers. As far as like things to complain about, to see, it really just comes down to, I feel like there are some people that they saw a brown girl was going to be the main character, and they were like, that upset them for whatever reason.
Just a woman as the main character. Like, people didn't like WandaVision at first, but it was so good that they just had to let it go. And I think that's what's happening with this show.
Absolutely.
But to an even more aggressive extent, where people are like, actually, this is brilliant.
Well, and also it's hard. It's also hard for, like, I get it. I'm a white nerd. Like, I'm a 27-year-old white nerd. It's bruh. But it's like when you're trying to like conflate like our coming up in the nerd world, like we didn't come across very many like nerdy girl, like they, like when you did, I feel like for a lot of nerds, they're like, oh, well, like, that's not realistic because I've never seen a nerdy girl. It's
like maybe they just don't want to hang out with you because you're lame,
same
bro.
way as
And
people
that's
saying, like,
the
girls don't
problem.
exist in playing video games.
That is the problem.
Yeah, it's
Hi.
like, it's not a real
I am a
critique.
nerdy girl, and this is so
Yeah, you
great.
are.
It did not deserve to be at a 30%.
No.
That is so, like, what?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I know.
It is so good. It's such a great story. It's so well
I
done.
think it's gone up on both ends since then, but
actresses
yeah.
are great. Like, it's just amazing. And there is so many women and girls who are going to grow up watching this, and it will just be just amazing. It's time
like,
for us to have like a moment.
Like, you know, you always think about how boys on Halloween, they walk around dressed up as fucking, you know, the Men in Black or Ghostbusters or Spider-Man. It's like now there's like a viable costume for like little girls that if they want to like
Yeah.
hook up and fucking dress up as Miss Marvel and be a badass, they get to fucking
like
do
they
that.
don't have to. You don't have to be stuck with princesses. You don't have to be stuck
Yeah.
with like sexy cat or whatever ridiculousness. You
Because
got.
I mean, even before, I mean, like there was Wonder Woman, but she was like almost this other level. She was like a goddess from a different planet.
well,
and
she's
now
literally
finally,
a goddess.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is you think about the Wonder Woman costume. I'm not shitting on the Wonder Woman costume, by the way. I'm not trying to
little
get into all
girls
that.
cannot quite
but
wear.
this is
that
like
for
a-
trick or treating.
Yeah, this is like a reasonable costume that a real superhero would wear. That just so happens.
This is a reasonable costume that the actress who played her did wear.
yeah, exactly, precise. And no one's gonna think it's the Flash anymore. So that's
exactly.
just.
Yeah.
I'm super into that. I think we've kind of gone over the pilot in detail. For me,
Number rating.
I'm gonna give my number rating for the pilot, but I will say it is different for the rest of the show, and I'll tell you why. This is totally a 10 out of 10 pilot. I really think this is the strongest pilot for Disney Plus since WandaVision. Maybe even a stronger pilot than WandaVision's. I guess I'll have to watch it more and kind of come to that conclusion over time. But man, this was so fucking good. It really was. Zane?
So I kept kicking around between 9 or a 10. I'm like, there's a couple of things that maybe I could say might change, but if those things changed, would it have not come across as well? I think I got to go with a 10 out of 10 as well.
Yeah, it's like we're not saying the whole show's a 10 out of 10. We'll get to that, but like the pilot.
It's so well done. It draws you into the story. Everything's explained really quickly and succinctly. It's done. It's the best pilot that I've seen in years.
And the acting's not terrible from young people. Like that's the other thing is that all the teenager characters, they're good.
Producer Lacey.
This is definitely a 10 for me. 10
Yeah.
out of 10. Honestly, for the pilot and the whole series, it's great. And another point I was trying to make with the Wonder Woman thing
Yeah, go
is
ahead.
like now I feel like Miss Marvel and even Captain Marvel, like I feel like the characters are just going to be more relatable. They're more human, whereas like I feel like Wonder Woman could be not quite as much relatable as like Miss
Wonder
Marvel.
Woman's in reality is about as relatable as Thanos, right?
Well,
like
yeah.
Wonder
it's this
Woman's
godlike character.
I know that you're a big Superman fan, but the problem that I've always had with Superman is
put it in perspective, okay?
Yeah.
I'm a good comics Superman fan.
yeah.
There is plenty of bad Superman. Don't put me in a box.
Okay, yeah. But
Read American Alien.
the issue is that a lot of the times when you get those godlike characters like Superman, like Wonder Woman, they become unrelatable because it's like they're these pillars of like they're just pure
That was just
goodness.
my thought.
And
I feel like Miss
Kamala
Marvel is so much more relatable for
Yeah. I think they're accomplishing different things. I think the idea of Superman more is about a story of a man that's an immigrant, so to speak, a man out of a comfort zone, a man away from home.
And it doesn't matter how great you are, it's still hard to be an
Yeah. The story's never been about like how much is this guy like you. It's how much this guy isn't like you, isn't accepted, but still chooses to do the right thing, right? That's where Superman's story lies. Whereas Kamala Khan is like, you can just point anywhere in the United States and there is a teenage girl who totally aligns with this character. And that's the goal of it, right? Even though it's a specific like tunnel vision shot of a specific group, it doesn't operate that way. It is so open and relatable.
Yeah.
Then that's the goal of the character. So I don't like to compare the superheroes in that way, but I get what you're saying. And that's why Wonder Woman is a lot harder, I think, for kids to be like, I want to dress up as that person. Because she's never really intended to be like you and me. Her purpose of a story is that like she is the strong female lead.
Yeah.
She is female power. Like she's an embodiment of it. She's not like a real character. That's not her goal.
Yeah, and I'm not dissing on Wonder Woman in any means. Like, I enjoy that as well. But I feel like now I'm just so excited to have someone, like, even more relatable and honestly just as strong. Even though, like, she's learning how to, like, do her powers and it's all new, she's going to be a strong individual for the MCU.
And it's just fun.
Yeah, it's good.
It's so much fun.
So everybody gave it a 10 out of 10? All right, guys, we're going to be back with the spoilers. And obviously, we're going to talk about that twist ending. So please, Come right back. Where should we even start with this? Right? Okay. Do you just want to go straight to the end and then work your way back, or
So I want to say
the episode 3 thing?
the episode 3 thing.
Go ahead, yeah.
So one of the big complaints that came out of that very specifically wasn't coming out of like the alt-right and the like racism,
The sweaty,
and all that.
angry boys.
Yeah, exactly. Like one of the things that was, it actually was coming from the demographic that Kamala Khan is supposed to be representing, was the fact that in episode 3 they made it seem as though her powers came from the fact that she was partially a Jinn, and that is horribly taboo in those religions. So a lot of like the like worship of a Jinn is almost like, it's like worshiping a demon to the nth degree in like most Christian faiths, as far as for just like the layman to kind of pick up who's not super in with those like religions. So that was one of the big things that when they put that out there, it really shot down. It was a lot of people who might not have picked the show back up, and I feel really scared for them because they do end up, and that brings us to the twist.
Well, let me say one thing before we get to that. Would be good, but that's a good. You had a good, and I just want to say one thing. That was a good transfer, though. That was nice. I liked that. But what I want to say is, I kind of just want to disregard that opinion, and let me tell you why. Without saying I'm not disregarding anybody's religion, but you have to consider, like, how does Ghost Rider get his powers? Right? He makes a deal with the devil.
Yeah.
I mean, there's tons of interaction with fictional depictions of faith.
Yeah.
So I just don't really vibe with that. Now, at the same time, I'm not the person who can speak to it.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, if we're looking at this in a totally secular way and a case-by-case comparison...
They also refer to the fact that, like, I think there's a line that they say it's like, if Thor landed in the Himalayas, like, he would have been labeled a Jinn as well.
Yeah.
So they say, technically, like, the Jinn that are in the religion are not...
Yeah, they're not the ones that we're seeing on screen.
They're not the demons. They're not the actual evil spirits that are, like, actually, they're aliens that got labeled as Jinn by people who came across them.
Yeah.
So that is one of the things. They clear that up the first way, and then they also do it the second way by introducing...
So the ending is fucking awesome. Okay, so... And we'll get more to the other stuff, but I just want to say the ending because it's what everybody wants us to talk about. It's the whole reason why this show's trending right now. Kevin Feige gave the showrunner a lot of freedom. I mean, more than most people get just working with a normal studio, where it's like, make the show that you want to make. It needs to hit like these small points. It needs to make you think that she's one way, and then at the very end, I want a twist. And I want it to be that this is the first introduction of a mutant into the MCU. And a lot of people actually had problems picking up on that, and it's not just you. Because in the comics, she's actually one of the Inhumans, and that's her mutation.
So the Inhumans, for people who don't know, are a race of beings. They're basically humans that Krees, who are like the people who changed Miss Marvel, and originally Miss Marvel was partially Kree, but they basically tested on humans, altered their DNA to where they would have superpowers when you introduce them to, like, the Terrigen Mist.
But if you didn't know this, there was an Inhuman show that was fucking god-awful. So Kevin Feige has sworn off an Inhumans involvement further going in the MCU. I mean, it's because originally the Inhumans were a part of the MCU, but it was so bad, it's one of the few things that we've retconned. That and Edward Norton. So... Yeah, it's true. So when they were making the Miss Marvel show, everybody was asking, they put Black Bolt in the dangled Doctor Strange multiverse of mapness. So maybe she'll be an Inhuman in this show. And at the very end, you're finding out that the bangle that the whole show is trying to make you believe this whole time is giving her powers doesn't have shit to do with it. And that it only activated something in her. And what they're trying to tell us in this defined universe is people's mutations in the MCU, as it seems, a lot of the time comes out as a defense mechanism. It's something that's activated within themselves, not something that they have coming to puberty. So I think that that's a really interesting take. But also, it makes the scene from the first episode so much fucking better. Because you think that when she travels to this thing, she's like seeing other Inhumans or maybe like some part of culture. And they even play like some like, you know, relevant music, like, you know, the kind of Pakistani kind of like, you know, it's really cool. But at that point, it's a misdirect because what she's actually seeing is all the other mutants on Earth. Mm-hmm. I thought that was so fucking dope.
Well, there's also the scene where Bruno talks about the fact that, the bracelet is doing something, but the power is coming from within her.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that kind of leads to that.
But they think the whole time that the power within her, the reveal is going to be she's an Inhuman. And then they get to the part with the mutation, and they just so fucking barely put the X-Men theme from the cartoon.
Enough to where I didn't even notice that. I heard you've got a mutation. And yeah, I think Lacey went, is she a mutant? And I was like, well, no, in the comics, she's an Inhuman. So the mutation is probably the fact that she's got Kree ancestry. And then when I came over here and you were like, oh no, dude, Kevin Feige came out, I was like instantly blown away. I was like,
well, actually,
wild.
the showrunner came out and repeated what Kevin Feige told her, which is essentially the same thing. That at the end, the twist is, you know, the M. Night style twist. Fucking, this girl's a mutant, and she's gonna be the first mutant introduced in the MCU. And now there's these figures coming out, and there's all this art of her in the Wolverine outfit, and I fucking love it. I'm honestly way more loving her being the first mutant, because now it's like a representation of something. You know what I mean? The first mutant that they committed to the MCU wasn't like fucking white ass Wolverine or Scott or somebody basic. They're like, no, we're gonna write this amazing character. You're gonna accept this character in all these ways and love her, and then you're gonna find out. And then she says the best fucking response ever. It's just gonna become another label. Yeah. Which is in reference to like, you're just gonna call me a mutant anyway, so like I don't give a fuck. They're just gonna call me whatever they want, but it's not gonna change who I am. It's like, ugh.
And at first, when I heard that they weren't going to do the Inhuman thing, that they're making her a mutant now, at first I was like, oh, well, that's kind of shitty that they're writing out the Inhumans. And then I remembered the Inhumans were just a weird way to do mutants a second time, that like to add them into weird storylines, the same way that technically Green Arrow was made to make Batman things that couldn't go into Batman comics.
And like now it's like we have a mutant in the MCU that's basically our Green Lantern, and she's a badass. Like I'm all the fucking about it, dude. I'm so in. But we've talked, Lacey, being that you don't care about the X-Men at all, did this scene even remotely affect you, or did it make you care at all about it?
Honestly, not really.
So
like just as honest, like
no, I get it. No,
I mean,
but the show still accomplished what it needed to. You still love the show.
I still love the show.
There's something in it for everybody.
I'm excited to see more from Miss Marvel. I'm excited for more, whether that be mutants or whatever. It might get me into another thing that I didn't think I previously liked. So maybe this is just my stepping stone into like the mutants and that sort of thing. We will have to see.
What do you think was now that we're in this, what's the strongest storyline that came throughout the rest of the series for you guys? Like, what's the one thing you guys like dialed in on? Like, what's one thing that you remember about the overall show where you're like, that was a fucking cool thing that they did?
I really liked when she goes back in time.
Oh, me too.
You get the
so
story
good.
of her family, her like how her grandmother came to be on the train. That whole like storyline, seeing like
she's her own origin story.
I know.
How fucking nuts is that?
Insane.
That's insane. It really is such a cool idea.
It's so cool. But that whole part I love so much. What's wrong?
Why are you laughing so hard?
Wait, just when you said she's her own origin story, it reminded me of when Fry goes back in time to Area 51.
But that's just it. This is like a good version of that. No, I'm just kidding. I love Futurama. I'm not trying to shit on that, but
no,
so
but
irrelevant.
I really liked that. I really liked the wedding the wedding.
Oh, it
wedding
was
scene
so,
was so-
fucking cute and perfect.
It was so
when
perfect.
Bruno
and
does a
then,
little bit.
but then like it gets a little ruined. But it's fine.
It was also cool to
What's
see
a wedding without some crazy stuff happening?
It was
Yeah.
also cool to see a traditional wedding like that, like in a mosque. You know what I mean? It was just cool to
Yeah,
have that depicted on
absolutely.
screen.
Yeah.
It was
because
beautiful.
I really haven't seen anything like that in like a huge public like big show or movie, and so that was really cool because they didn't try to make it like when there was an Indian style wedding, for instance, in like Tom and Jerry, for instance.
Oh, very racist.
Yeah, like that's kind of what I was hoping wouldn't happen, and thankfully it was just this beautiful, well shot scene that just.
And everybody's
It just gave
having
you
fun.
butterflies,
It's-
dude.
yeah,
Like you
it
just
was
enjoyed it and
so
you loved all the
beautiful.
characters. So like all the happiness in the room, you're like there. And then the fucking old boys show up to ready to take back that bangle and fucking kill her whole family. And it's like the tension's there now for real because you officially love everybody at this wedding.
So one of the other things that I love, like just as far as like their scene building and their like way of letting everything play out, one of the biggest critiques that a lot of comic book movies get in general is, oh, we're supposed to all like pretend that we love this billionaire flying around in a like super powered suit. We're supposed to pretend like, oh, all the police force is always the good guy, but they go through and they show you in those little scenes where they're like going into the mosque and being very disrespectful, like they're leaving their shoes
Yeah,
on.
I mean,
They're
that was
going
another
through and
reason
they're
why
ripping
people-
things apart. And
There was a couple of white people out there that didn't like this. And then they even had to put a depiction warning at the beginning of episode 6 because of the way that this law enforcement agency, you know, damage control, they're not really law enforcement, but they kind of are, how they treat like Kamala and her friends.
Yeah.
And they had to put a warning at the top because like, not because they were worried about it disturbing people, but because they were worried about like MAGA heads getting mad that they were depicting the police in that way. Like it's not true.
yeah,
I just thought that was so fucking crazy that they had to write that at the beginning. And
it's
It's just really sad that it's so close to the truth of like what actually happened.
yeah, definitely. When she says, what's the name of the friend character, the one who runs for like the board? What's her name again? I
can't remember off the
She's
top of
so
my head.
it starts
she's
with an N.
also
It's like-
so good.
yeah.
But I
It's
love
like Nadia or something like that. I can't.
I think
remember
you're right.
Exactly.
It's something like that.
Yeah.
I love when Bruno and was it Cameron? Is that his name or
Cameron.
Cameron? Okay.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember what it was. I kept thinking like Corin, and I know that's a fucking Dragon Ball Z reference. So when they show up at the mosque and then they're like looking for refuge, and she just goes, "We came to the wrong place. We're a freaking mosque, you know. Like
Yeah.
we are surveilled more than any place
Yeah,
on
it's
earth."
like I'm pretty sure the
And when you
post
think
office-
about that in like conceptually and how sacred and private things like this are supposed to be, and how there's a lot of people that go to a mosque and they have opinions of cameras that are like a life-altering serious opinion that they don't want to interact with them. And then to find out like, yeah, the US government totally has cameras,
Yeah.
bugs, everything on these. There's just like no respect.
no.
And it's shown through scenes where like they come in and the base, I don't know what you would call him, like the priest like character, I'm not familiar. Who is the guy who led the mosque, like the head guy?
Yeah.
When he's talking to them and he says like, "Oh, you know, they say I don't need to be, God doesn't need to be on my side as long as I'm on God's side."
yeah.
And the lady's like, "Don't quote the Quran to me." And he's like, "Actually, that's Abe Lincoln, bitch." Like I love
Yeah.
that scene.
It just absolutely
so good.
And then,
So good.
And then watching like a hateful cop go at somebody after they've been told leave it alone.
Yeah. That's
It's-
so accurate.
That was one of the most powerful, like the fact that as soon as he's like, you lock everything down, you get back here. That way, he's like, what are you doing? Like, are you even seeing what you're doing? You're attacking school children. You're attacking.
And
you're
also,
about to.
the entire in school scene when they're supposed to be using non-lethal weapons.
Yeah,
and
non-
they're
it's
shattering
taking out
concrete,
chunks
yeah.
of concrete.
Yeah, oh, I
That's
know.
Non-lethal.
And then the way they're fighting
It's
them
just
back
like
is with
rubber
fucking
bullets.
tennis balls and shit.
Yeah.
Like the most innocent fucking like
Yeah.
aw shucks Home Alone fucking defense system.
It literally like they're going through. They're creating smoke with it.
I mean,
Literally
Bruno
felt like a
almost died.
Luno
Like,
tune.
Bruno almost got his head fucking shot off like 8 times.
Yeah.
It was
and
crazy.
blew up, like,
Yeah,
the
it's
whole
nuts.
bomb thing for what was it? The Circle Q?
Yep.
Yeah.
The circle. Yeah, when they just
Yeah.
blew up
Yeah.
that fucking, and it's like there were all the only people that were in that whole building were 2 children.
Yeah.
Granted, one, not necessarily a normal child, but still children at the end of the day. In a world where you're dealing with enhanced human beings, is there no protocol? Is there no, like, it's showing how in the real world, like, a lot of times law enforcement doesn't have the skills they need to, like, diffuse a situation. They're just undertrained bimbos, so to speak.
Yeah. And,
so, like, it shows that in this show so perfectly, and it's so realistic. And I think it's so funny they had to say, like, these depictions do not reflect our personal opinions. Like, what are you talking about? There's no opinion. This is just, like, a very realistic depiction of how it actually is.
And one part I really liked at the end school scene, they're outside the school now fighting. Kamala grabs one of the tanks or trucks or whatever it is, and she stops and she checks on the people inside, on the
So
2
good.
Because
like
that's
military
what
men.
heroes
Yes.
do.
Yep.
She's like, "Are you guys good? Like, are you okay? I know
Even
you
though
guys
they
are
were
coming
trying
at
to-
me,
yeah.
but are you okay? Like, are you good?"
And then Kamran shoots that car, and she saves all. I mean, granted, her family was in there, but still, it's just like, it's crazy to me, like, that people have an issue with the depiction.
And let the record show, I've got friends and family in the police force.
So do
Like,
I.
it's-
I was in the groom's party of a fucking police officer for
Yeah.
his wedding. I'm aware that it's not all bad cops.
Yeah.
We're talking about a corrupt system at its core.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of those things that, like, there are inherent biases. And to say that there aren't, it's turning a blind eye. And it's not making the world a better place.
No.
And this shows that even in that system, even when there are safeguards, even when there are all these other things, you can still have somebody go rogue. And when they're told, do not go in there and shoot up a school, they're still going to go ahead and they're going to do
Yeah.
whatever their prejudices tell them to do.
Yep, because people like that also feel like they have no accountability. You know what I mean? Like, the fact that she got fired was the most fictional part. I'm being totally dead honest. The most fictional
fuck
part of
it.
that show was when she was fired for
Yeah.
what she did. You just be like, you're on paid leave for 3 hours.
Yeah.
That's usually how it would go.
As
Okay.
far as what did you think about, like, some of the in Pakistan scenes?
I thought that they were great. I did think that it was a bit of easy writing for her to, like, show up, see something, and then instantly members of Red Dagger are, like, fucking
Yeah.
there. But it's
Well,
also
also-
like they would be surveilling that spot, though.
Instantly, members of Red Dagger are there. Instantly, she gets taken to the like
But-
sanctum, and then instantly she gets brought to this campfire. And now
That's-
she's got friends in Pakistan.
That's why. By the way, that campfire scene looked like a Levi's commercial.
Yeah.
I'm not hating. I'm not saying anything negative about it, but you could crop it and put Levi's or Pepsi as an ad right
I
there.
want to try the food that they were eating at the
Yeah.
campfire.
Oh, it looks
Whatever
so
that
good.
was,
All of
I'm
the
like, I
food
want
in
one,
there.
Tikka
please.
masala or some shit looked
Yes.
delicious as fuck. But that's actually, you touched on the point of why I said earlier in the interview, it's a 10 out of 10 for the pilot, but the rest of the show I feel differently about. This show for me is a solid 8, and here's why. It has nothing to do with the direction, has nothing to do with the characters, has literally nothing to do with the story necessarily.
It was
has
too
to do with
short.
the pacing, because fucking Disney's like 6 episodes is enough for an entire show. And this show is as long as the part 2 of Stranger Things. Like, this entire show is as long as the last 2 episodes of Stranger Things.
Yeah.
They could have easily added 6 more episodes.
They could have even
spread it apart,
2 more
details.
episodes.
2 more episodes
would have done
and-
so much and would have cost barely any more. I mean, like,
Yeah.
they could have even been shorter episodes, but you just needed more time. Like, give me a flashback scene of how Red Daggers began, and like, and show me some of these other
Show me-
characters.
Show me another like give me one more episode in Pakistan where you get to like grow on that.
Give me
whole-
one scene where her grandmother is like at a middle age point where she actually is like the town crier and trying to convince people of all this stuff.
Yeah.
Give me something. You talk about how much dishonor she brought to the family. Not one fucking scene depicts this.
I say there's that quick little like you were acting crazy, mom.
Yeah,
And
but
then-
why should they have to explain that? Just show me it.
Exactly. And then like give Kamala a little bit of time to like had they given her 10, 15 minutes, like an extra day with the red daggers to, I don't know, maybe do some fucking training or something, like actually get a few little skills to pull out later on, like that would have been so much. You could have done so much character building there.
Like this show's probably got roughly about 2 hours of runtime. If you get rid of all the credits and you push everything together, you cut out some of the opening, like, you know, credits and everything, you're going to get about 3 hours of show. Well, Jessica Jones is a Marvel show that was on Netflix, and they have like 20 hours worth of shit, 10 hours a season.
Yeah.
If they would have just given us another hour, if this show had been actually made for Netflix originally instead of Disney Plus, I'm telling you, it would be a 10 out of 10 show.
Yeah.
This show didn't have the room it needed to succeed because it had all the ingredients to. That's how I feel. So that's why, for me, the show's an 8 out of 10, even though it would deserve more. It's just, I have to judge it on what came out, and there was just so much missing for me, and it has nothing to do with the creatives behind it and everything to do with budgetary reasons. So fuck you, Bob Chapek. No, I'm just kidding. You're a good guy. Not really, but you know what I'm saying.
Producer Lacey, you wanna give your number score?
Oh, I already said 10. I
Is
like
that
it.
Even the whole show.
Even the whole show.
But do you wish it would have been longer, just like in hindsight? Like, even if you do accept it as it is, do you wish there would have been more?
I do accept it as it is. I would have gladly accepted more. I would have gladly accepted.
Well, I think we're about to go
else.
buy a bunch of comics so that you
Oh,
can
yeah.
get more
absolutely.
stuff.
Dude, you have to
That
read
or
them. They're
take a
so
trip
good.
to the library, you know?
Yeah. Just go through, pick up as much of that. I love finding little things like that where you're just like, I now need to consume all of the media that goes along with this. Like, I'm just so excited. I'm so ready to just go buy a bunch of comics for that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to, obviously, she's going to be in the Marvels, considering the end scene too, where she literally switches spots.
place with or Captain Marvel.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people who weren't sure if she had become her or whatever it may be. Let me just lay it out clear.
Yeah.
Kevin Feige explained to the showrunner that it was a switching of positions.
She freaking time traveled. What is it with just switching with like Captain Marvel? That's easy. I don't understand.
I think
the
it's just
confusion.
I think it's just a matter of like people
Don't know her power set.
don't know her power set, don't know what the bangle does, because so far it's like a lot of them
Which
didn't
also,
even.
the bangle is a magical artifact. Like, that is going to have repercussions.
And that's an after credits scene, right?
Yeah.
Do you know they are showing that in the Disney Plus spots right now?
Are you fucking serious?
They are showing Captain Marvel in the Disney Plus spots right now.
That's wild to me.
It's like, can we fucking quit spoiling entire shows? Like, are you fucking kidding me?
That's
They showed Agatha in full evil as well right after WandaVision finished airing. It's like, can we
that.
stop with these spots? Like, I
Yeah.
understand you guys got a new CEO and you guys have a different marketing scheme. You think giving away everything will get more butts and seats. You guys are already the number one franchise of all time and one of the most popular streaming services week to week.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whenever a good Disney Plus show is on, everyone's watching it. Just doesn't make any sense to me.
As far as my number score, jeez. Sorry, recording this a little bit late.
Yeah, we've been just recording all fucking day.
Yeah, so I think as far as my number score, I'm gonna have to go with a 9 out of 10 because it's definitely there are definitely cuts to it that I wish that they had more time to explore and flesh some of these things out more, like the transition from Zoe, I think it is, the Instagram girl or whatever. Like, she goes from being like,
Oh, yeah, I didn't
in the
really buy
background.
that.
Yeah, it's like, I wish that
didn't-
there had been a little something there, like one or two more interactions in
And,
the halls.
and that might be the
anything.
time thing, you know? And also her just being her friend at the end, like, she saved my life. She deserves... Like, when did you have this character turn? I'm
Yeah.
just supposed to accept it. But I don't hate it. It's not like I can't accept it. I'm just like, with this show and how good the character writing is,
Yeah,
I just
There's so
expected
much
more of an
amazing
evolution.
character development. So I get them not wanting to spend a whole bunch of extra time on like some of the lesser side characters. One of my favorite memes that came out of this show was Kamala Khan collecting all the boys in her Infinity Gauntlet. Because you got Bruno, you got
I love
Harmon,
the girls.
you got the
I
Red
love
Dagger
the
guy.
strong women in this.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
boys are also great. Like
Bruno's the
he's
best,
such
man.
a cutie. I love him. He's so
And we will
sweet.
talk about Bruno.
I
in
like
this one.
I like Kamran because he is in a sense a villain at a small point, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe that evolution could still happen in further franchises. But it's also like he is just shown like a good person, like treats him well. And then it's almost like a realization for him, like, oh, maybe I shouldn't like hurt these people because I'm upset. Maybe I should just try to get away.
Also,
I like that character development. I felt like he was a good character. And when he started actually calling Bruno, I'm like, oh, they're boys now. That's what's up.
Also, I feel like they're teenagers too. Like they don't quite have a hold of how to handle all these emotions and everything.
Yeah.
So
and
I feel like
especially
that plays
that's
into
one of the
it.
great things when you've got teenagers who get superpowers. It's like, how do they deal with it?
Because being a kid is also a lot harder than people give it credit for, you know?
Yeah.
The social anxiety of it, the lack of voice that you have in your day-to-day life. That totally plays into it because there's not a lot of personal freedom that Kamala's character, gets. Like, there's not really any. So then to add on the burden of responsibility of being a superhero to that, it's just an interesting dynamic.
Also, they make a quick little reference to a Marvel movie that I feel like nobody really talks about after it dropped, The Eternals. They reference Kingo.
Probably because it's kind of bad.
I loved The Eternals.
I did not
had a
dig
great
it
time
at
with
all. Me personally, but
They did
you know.
I feel like they did a fairly well job with a ensemble cast. That's where we'll leave it. This isn't an Eternals review, but
Yeah.
they bring up Kingo because he is such a big part of like Bollywood cinema, and that's like one of his little character arcs that they go on, and that's one of the things that like if you were having a conversation with somebody about like this cool thing in your culture, like having a little icon like that and then also having that be a little Easter egg for something else, like a lot of the
it's
little
nice
things are just
inside
so
baseball for the
masterfully
major
done.
Marvel fans,
Yeah.
but it's not required watching for you to understand.
Exactly.
The show.
Like if you hear somebody talk about like a Bollywood thing, you're like, oh yeah, that's a Bollywood thing. I don't know much about Bollywood, so I don't really get it. If you are a Bollywood fan, you're probably like, that was weird. That's probably a thing I need to look into.
Yeah,
more.
that
If
sounds
you're a
fictional
deep
as
cut-
hell, yeah.
If you're a deep cut, you're like, oh fuck, they just mentioned Kingo. Like it's just one of those neat things that you get to do. So I do love the world building in this. Just felt so natural, and I just absolutely fell in love with this story. And I think everybody who is at all interested in any of this superhero stuff or just coming of age stories or anything like that, this is an
Or
amazing
women empowerment.
for real, you
yeah.
can watch this show and you really don't need to know shit. I mean,
if
like,
you know superheroes exist.
if you know superheroes
boom.
exist, you're good because they don't even really make reference to the blip. Like they don't do
Yeah.
anything involved, and they could, and they decided not to. I think just to make it a more easily digestible story.
Basically, all you have to know for this show: superheroes exist. She's a nerd of the superheroes.
She really likes Captain Marvel.
Yeah. You don't even need to know who Captain Marvel is.
You just need to.
No,
just
but
know
you
that-
should.
You should. Yeah,
You
absolutely
should.
You should.
I mean, yeah,
Go watch
that
it.
little cat's the fucking best. I'm just saying. You don't need anything to watch. Like you don't need required watching to get it. And I think that was a really good idea.
Yeah.
It's a lot better than the Runaways as far as Teen Marvel goes too. So
Yeah.
this is just a total success.
As a Runaways fan, yeah.
Yeah, there's no CG dinosaurs here, thankfully.
As there shouldn't have been originally.
Yeah, probably not.
The comic's good.
Well, what do you guys think? You think we got it all covered? You think so? Or
Yeah, I think.
oh, I do want to say one thing. I liked the old school Bollywood opening to episode, I believe, 4 when she
Yeah.
had time traveled. That was fucking dope.
Yeah.
Really loved that. That was a great job. Like the old school like film and everything, and you're just like it puts you
Which
in time.
also, as far as like most Americans don't know about Partition, and watching that was heartbreaking.
Yeah, it was really fucking sad.
Yeah, it was just something that like it just like fucked me up when I was watching it. It was just like, that's really dark. There's so many little pieces of history that the entire world has seen darkness.
Yeah,
and to-
everything's all whitewashed. It's like, well, we don't want to talk about that because we are possible descendants of the people
Yeah.
who are likely most responsible for these things,
Yeah.
and it's really fucked up that everything isn't so publicly taught. Like that's probably
and
something
even
that
talking
you should
about like
learn in
the
world
way
history.
that like when India was split between the Muslims, the Hindus, and I think it's the Sikhs. Like when they split it up into those thirds and sent everybody away, like the guy was talking about, he's like, nobody will sell me food because I'm a Muslim. Like I've always lived in, this is this is my city, this is my town, like these are the people that I've always known, like my dad built this house.
Yeah.
And he's like, just because I believe something different from you, like now we're all gonna separate, and like I've got to go somewhere else. Like it's one of those things that it's just heartbreaking, and it's like that's so wild that things like that happen in the real world, and then that we don't hear about them.
Yeah. It's fucked. It's so fucked, but it's just this was a great way to it's like a nice history lesson as well as like a really entertaining show. So
it is. I have one last thing to say.
Please do, yeah.
For
Producer
a little
Lacey,
bit of a lighter note to end this on.
Instead of
I thought it was so heartwarming and endearing when she gets her suit from her mom.
So great.
So after her mom had been talking about like I don't want you running around in those skimpy outfits or anything. Like,
and it's like, and she had made her like a very traditional outfit before, and like now you're seeing that it's like more Kamala's style, and it's like
it's a perfect blend. It's a perfect mix of like traditional and like what Kamala would wear normally every day.
Yeah,
it was so beautiful, and I just love that whole scene that went with that.
Mm-hmm.
That was good, and you just reminded me of another scene we didn't bring up where she had a plan at the beginning of the film that totally flopped and failed, and then they basically reincorporate a different plan scene at the end of the show, and that one kind of works. And it's a nice little evolution for the character, and it's a nice callback to like that funny montage-esque, neat, kind of almost heist film-esque scene.
Yeah.
I really think that she would work really hilariously with Ant-Man for that reason.
Yeah.
So here's hoping that interaction eventually happens.
yeah, that's absolutely
His
something that would be
daughter's
amazing.
about the same age. They could go to the same high school at some point.
I totally forgot. I talked about it in the first half. Just the scene with the mom where like they start is like, oh, they're just kind of like, it's a mom, it's a kid. Oh, now they're kind of adversarial, and then they go to Pakistan, and then they like really bond, and it's just like these beautiful scenes. Like she comes home and the mom is sitting there eating the toffee after she's gotten into a fight with her mom, and then it's just kind of this like generations of growth and love and support. And
That's a
it's-
great scene because it's so human. Like, who hasn't like sat down with a member of their family and just like sat in the kitchen and had a conversation?
Well, and her grandma's like, she's like, well, why do you have all these toffee boxes? And she's like, well, at one point you told me you like toffee, and it's just like my heart broke. I was like,
She wanted her to come back home.
Yeah.
Eventually.
and it was just so sweet. And she's like, I thought you ran away from me. And she's like, no, I ran away. Like, I want you to come live with us. Like, I still want you to be a part of my life. And it was just this beautiful, like, generational thing. Like, there are things that my mom needs to know about me. There are things that I need to know about my mom. There are things that my daughter needs to know about me. There are things that I need to know about my daughter. And it showed huge growth.
And it's cool how it ties a lot to fate too, right? Because the events and their fights need to happen in this exact sequence for eventually Kamala to go to Pakistan and then eventually travel back to the past and essentially start the entire lineage of her whole family in the sense of the way things shook out. So it's also a cool take on fate, I guess, even though it doesn't necessarily address that at the top.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I really like that for the MCU because there's a lot of things in the MCU where they're like, fuck fate.
Yeah.
You know? Like, that's sort of an element. Like, we'll go against the odds. I liked something being like, this is a circular thing. This was always meant to happen this way. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't really think this is necessarily a need for a game. I think we can just wrap up
I
here.
think we're good.
I
I think it's time.
I will say the outros were a straight bop.
Dude,
I jammed
yeah,
out
not even
to
every
them.
time.
For sure.
All of the music in this was just like
so
so,
good.
great. I'm probably gonna end up going through looking up a bunch of those artists and adding them into my playlist.
Yeah,
'cause
dude, it was just
loved
tight.
it.
The end credit music, especially with all the graffiti and Jersey City and
Yeah.
everything, it was just fucking cool as shit. I loved it. All right, guys. Let us know in the comments what you thought of Miss Marvel. Were you a super big fan of it? Do you have some criticisms that we didn't touch on that you feel are valid? Please leave them down in the comments below, and let us know if you have anything to say about it. Make sure to like and subscribe as well. You can also follow my boy Zane here. And you know where to follow me. I'm all over this channel, or you can check out youtube.com/Logan Tyler. I do interviews with people and stuff like that. Thank you to producer Lacey for sharing your voice.
Thanks.
Yeah. And guys, just remember, as it's said in the show, good is not something you are.
It is
Something you do. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Peace out.